Lucy Payne, the first time I walked into here, this very studio, I was feeling a little lost. I was hosting a conference that I didn't know what I was doing particularly. And Lucy was there. Stuart mentioned about holding people's hands. She was wonderful. She sorted everything out. She's the person everyone needs. Everyone needs a Lucy Payne. To tell you more about her and what she does, here is Lucy. Thank you.
What will events look like this time next year? That is one of the questions I was asking myself last March, and naively, I thought things would be back to normal. I predicted our team heading out to London for an award ceremony in the Grosvenor House Hotel, or kitting out the Aurora Ballroom at the O2 Intercontinental Hotel. Clients would be back to their normal ways with their usual live event requirements, and we would be back to the offices designing stages and storyboarding custom-made content. And when we went out on the road, it became ritual to have a curry every night before the event, and our site works really cemented our team atmosphere, which we strived for. We'd be back in the usual venues, and lockdown would be a thing of the past. Well, that hasn't exactly happened. Instead, we have built 3 studios, we are producing more content than we've ever created before, and virtual events have become the normal. So, as an event planner, where do you begin? Today, I'm going to talk about the highs and the lows of virtual, why running orders are gold dust, and how streaming platforms has become our new venues. My background is in theatre, either as an actor or working backstage as a DSM or stage manager. One of the things I really enjoy about live theatre is the evolution of a play when it's in rehearsal and seeing actors going from reading lines from a page to completely immersing an audience in a moment. As I'm sure a lot of you people watching will know, virtual events has gone from an evolution, it's gone through an evolution this past year. And I personally have had to learn how to use technology that's new to me. Understanding the intricate elements that make up our video and streaming systems, and then using that knowledge to help our clients build their events and create a great show, is part of my new normal. Because that's what we're doing now. We are creating shows. In a live event, you have a stage, lighting, music. You also have a venue, a table plan, entertainment, a bar. Your real-life audience has so many delights to enjoy and be distracted by. Whereas when it's virtual and your audience is remote, your venue is the platform and your live stream is the show. So, if you have a fault with a transition, or your celebrity guest has a cat who keeps walking in front of the camera, the chances are that people will be seeing these slip-ups a lot more in a virtual capacity compared to a live event. There's a few things I want to touch upon. Pressure of wanting to deliver a great experience. That one isn't new for us. Problems on your screen, like a loose cat, and the stress those problems can cause. And thirdly, technology. Why would anyone want to put an event on nowadays? And why would anyone want to facilitate a live remote event? We're always used to pressure, whether that's a good or a bad thing. And the pressure to produce a virtual event when you've never done one before can be overpowering. If you don't know how something works, then how do you know that it will work? This is something that I, as a project manager, have been helping my clients with. Giving clients the time to talk through their questions and assure them that no question is too small, too insignificant, or too stupid. You need to know how things work, and I'm here to help you understand. Virtual events can be creative, dynamic, engaging, all of the buzzwords, and they can be enjoyable for you to produce as well. As with live events, with virtual, there is an element of letting go of control. Seeing a transition not quite work on screen, yes, that's annoying, but it's happened. Seeing this happen when you're not in the same place as your technical provider, well, that will heighten your stress. And how do we, as a provider, effectively communicate what's happening? I'm still working on this as an event producer. And would I have done this in a live environment? I'll be honest, if a screen transition didn't quite work in a crowded ballroom, I can't say that it would have caused the same amount of stress then as it does now for a virtual event. And that's one of the heightened differences and added pressures with virtual technology. You are looking at technology. I am looking at technology. We are using technology to stream this event today. In a live event setting, yes, technology is important. A power plan is important, and the content being the right size for the screen matters. But did you, as an event planner, think about that very much? It was something that was just assumed. It's now become an inherent part of everyone's process when planning a virtual event. Now, I want to talk about your running order. In the theatre, the script is your stimulus. It gives you the blackout cues and the quick set changes on the stage. The play sets the basis for your cue sheet, which is something the DSM produces for the run. Now, thinking back to when we were producing live events, I, as the project manager, wasn't worried about the cues, the changing of the presenters on stage, or how many awards we would have. I was focused on the stage design, how many technical crew I needed to get the screen up in time for the rehearsals, and making sure we had the right kit for the job. But now, your running order is everything to me. It tells me what kit I need for the job, it tells me the number of crew I need to op the event, and how much rehearsal and programming time we need to factor in. The importance of the running order for me has flipped from being a part of the job to making the job. It's imperative that at the point where you want to bring in a technical company to help manage, run, and stream your event, that you have to have an agenda. Even if not everything has been finalised, it's great to be open with your wider team about your expectations for the final lineup. It really helps me, as a producer, ensure you have the right kit and the right team for your event. My theatre has a studio to use and transform for the live theatre we produce. Much like a conference venue, we have a blank canvas which can transform into a 1920s New York cocktail bar or a street in West Yorkshire with the audience sitting on both sides of the performing area. For live events, your venue instantly transforms your event. You choose your venue based on the feel of the place, the capacity, the looks, the food menu, the management and the support available to you. It all forms the experience you are aiming to achieve for your delegates, award nominees, sponsors, and guests. It's in a virtual world, you don't need to worry about capacity as much, although that can be an online limitation. There are many streaming platforms like YouTube where you can't have a hand in personalisation or remanagement, sponsor profiles, etc. But perhaps for your audience, that is the easiest place for people to go to online and watch. Thinking about your specific audience's needs when choosing your platform is essential. But you also want to provide for your sponsors. That may be through profiles, direct messaging, branding the platform with the logos and content. And is there availability to have multiple streams on the go so people have a choice of what to watch? You decide what your audience will see and what they will be able to do when interacting on the platform. The great thing about virtual events is being able to see what parts of the event your delegates engaged most in and what you can do more for your future events to maximise the use and engagement. So much of our planning has become about technology, and a lot of our time and resources go into producing quality content and detailed running orders to ensure a smooth delivery for your event. I wouldn't be surprised if in a year's time, virtual events will have evolved again, with the creative virtual decisions we can now make and the possibility of going hybrid to involve live guests and audience members. The previous factors of choices of venue, table centres, food menus and so on will become priorities again. So have any of you gone through this strange journey of live to virtual? And did anything I discuss resonate with you, or perhaps you might disagree with something I've said? Feel free to get involved in the chat box or just message me directly.
Lucy live here. So there's the wonders of she was there, just a minute, she was on a film, and now she's live. Thank you for that. It's fascinating for me listening to hear the transition from DSM, who's Deputy Stage Manager, so the stage management in the theatre, and then running events, which you must have done hundreds of them, to getting into this new digital world. What is this hybrid futures? What excites you about that?
What excites me is not having to get up at 4 in the morning for a truckload.
Yes.
No. So what excites me is just all the possibilities that you can do so much more with the content, and you can do so much more in a studio than you can when you're in a venue. Yes. In a venue, it really is all about the atmosphere that you're trying to create. Whereas with hybrid and with virtual, it's just about the screen in front of those people sitting at home.
Yes.
But I think there's an opportunity in that because you can do, like I said, content. You can do so much with content. You can have pre-recorded content, yes, and then you can have live interactions as well.
Yes. Which we just showed you just now.
Exactly. Yeah. And I chose to do pre-recording because it's just an example of how you can seamlessly put pre-records into live, and no one at home really needs to know the difference.
As long as they're wearing the same top.
As long as they're wearing the same top.
You mentioned about, and thank you for that, but you mentioned about doing those, getting up at 4:30 in the morning, and I get that there's a joy in that for a while, but the expense and all the energy goes into that, you can then put elsewhere. And that's what I'm getting, is that the time and energy and money that it must have cost to schlep all these lorry loads of kit.
Yeah, certainly. So don't get me wrong, I will really look forward to the first time we are going back into that world of getting up at 3:30 in the morning for a 4 o'clock start, getting everything up in time, will everything work? The excitement that you have in a venue when you have that time pressure to get something up and working and looking good is great. So I don't want to put a downer on that because that's all fun, but at the moment obviously we can't do that, and we need to have the positivity and the enthusiasm for this type of work. So yes, the planning and the cost is very different. It definitely costs less to put on a virtual event to some
Once
extent.
you've got your kit sorted in the first place, so the setup costs are higher.
So setup costs potentially higher, depending on what you go for, and certainly content costs, I would say, is more. Because there is so much more content that we have to plan for and we have to include. When you're in a live capacity, you have a presenter on stage, you have fancy lighting, you've got haze, everyone's sat at a table with a beautiful centerpiece and drinks and food. And I think the content, whilst it's important in a live capacity, I don't think, like I was saying earlier, I don't think it's as crucial.
It's crucial. Okay.
Whereas now I think it is crucial. So the planning, there's still a lot of heavy planning involved, as there would be for a live event, but it's so much more focused on the technical aspects.
Got it. Those conversations you have to have with clients, though, because I mean, my experience is clients assume that it will come cheaper because they're not hiring a hotel, they're not hiring all the lighting, they're not hiring the stage. Therefore, why does it still cost money to put it on? Surely can't you just shove it on a Zoom link and can't you just do it? Are those conversations you've been having, I assume, to a certain extent?
Yeah, and those conversations I think are really tricky because we all have phones and we all can do PowerPoint, and it's all so seamless and quick nowadays. You want to search for something, in 5 seconds on Google, it's there in front of you. But when it comes to creating a virtual event, there's so much more involved in planning the video system that you're going to have. It could be tried, tested and ready for you. However, if you've not got as much in your budget to kind of afford a big setup like this, so there needs to be a compromise with you adjusting your agenda or what you want to achieve so that it can be done on a smaller video system that we designed for you, because things like transitions and different layering, so you've got your pips and you've got videos and lower thirds coming in, it's all amazing, but we need to have the time in pre-production that's planned and paid for to build that for you and then also rehearse it. And unfortunately some clients don't have that time kind of in costing and budgeting wise to just use, which is fine.
So what is the key to be able to have those potentially difficult negotiating conversations with clients? What are your top tips on how do you, apart from kind of have the discussions earlier, get it up on the table earlier, what are your top tips on how do you convince a client that okay, the reason it costs this much is because we're putting this much planning in and we're having to set the, how do you do those conversations? Because I hear you do them pretty well, by the way.
So this is it, isn't it? I think you have to be open and honest, but you also have to remember that I understand it. I'm coming from a world, I've worked for this company for 4 years, and within that time I've done a lot of live, and in the last year I've done a lot of virtual. Tried, tested, cried, laughed, all of it.
Yes.
So you then have to get to a point where you can explain to people who are very well, they're well experienced in the event world, but they might be coming to us from a point of view of, we've never done a virtual event before,
yes.
How do we do it? And like you say, oh, can't we just put it up on the screen? No, it is a bit more complicated than that. And it's about trying to find a way of explaining that and making sure people understand, because I think that's another thing. I can talk to you about how we build a video system, how we queue it up, how we run it in rehearsal, and how it works for you on the day. And some people might go, yeah, okay, I get that, that makes sense. And then later on down the line in the process, I'm having conversations where I think, oh, okay, what I've said to you earlier, you said you got it, now I don't think you did, because you're now coming at me like, why can't we just do this? And it's a really tricky thing, because you can always do things last minute, do content last minute. There is always that, you can do it. But then you have an added factor of, we've not tested it. So sure, you want to quickly add in that last minute slide or that last minute video, we can do that. We can always do that for you. But if the video glitches out or the transition doesn't work, it's because we've not had the time to test it. So when I talked about running orders, if it's not finalised, fine, but I need to know like every eventuality of what could happen so that we've planned that state, that cue, that transition, even if it's just, right, we've got that cue in the background in case we need it. We might not use it, but we've got it just in case. So knowing all the eventualities and all the possibilities and just keeping those comms open so that I know in the back of my mind, right, I'm going to build an extra couple of cues because I think we might be getting something else come through last minute.
Yes. So that hasn't changed, because the number of conferences I've been party to where people are going, you said to the CEO, we need your slides by Monday, and then it gets to the Wednesday and you still haven't seen them.
No.
Those things haven't changed for you then?
It hasn't changed, but what has changed is the fact that, like I said earlier, if it's a big LED screen in a massive ballroom, 1,000 people in there, and you want something quickly going up last minute, people won't probably notice that transition on the back of their screen didn't quite work because we didn't quite have time to test it. It quickly came up, we can see, oh, that didn't really work. We never hear any feedback from client because they didn't see it.
Yes.
And that's, that is just part of events because we didn't have time to test it, like I said. But when it's virtual, you do see it because no one is distracted by the waiter or distracted by having a conversation or looking at a different screen. You are all looking at the same screen.
So people have a heightened expectation of perfection. Is that true to say?
Oh, definitely. Because we've all watched TV, we've all watched film, we've all kind of watched videos online of people critiquing certain filmmakers' way of doing something. So we all have that inner kind of voice, I think, already when we see something that doesn't quite work on screen. But that is another element that hopefully is forgiving about virtual, because if you're doing it live, there could be mistakes. A lower third could come up when it wasn't meant to. And that, I think, is partly because we are a live event agency, and we did do some film work. I don't think we ever did any live streaming in this capacity.
No.
So we are basically transforming from being a live event agency to a live streaming agency almost. Like we're transforming to online. And it's a process we're still learning, but I think we're doing pretty well.
Yeah, no, I think you're doing pretty well. But in terms of, I've seen you physically kind of like changing the setup and the way you work.
Yeah.
I mean, my business is in people development and how you get mentally people shifting their mindsets around stuff, and in terms of leadership development. In what ways have you and your team had to change your mindsets about things? Which are the thought distortions or that got in the way that you've had to get over? 2 questions there. Take whichever one you want.
What was the first one?
Yeah, okay, no, you do. The mindset one. How has your mindset had to shift?
Changed?
Yeah.
I would say from a team point of view, even though we are a team and we're a very kind of close-knit team, we support each other, it's also quite compartmentalised, or it used to be. So you had your different departments, everyone had their own thing to do, and that was what they did. Whereas now the mindset has changed, where we are all open to doing and jumping onto any role that is needed or required.
So, for instance, if you weren't on sound, but the sound guy had to go and do something else, you could switch onto sound?
Yeah, so that's an interesting one, because I could. Not as well experienced in sound as some people, but I could, because of the way it's been patched in with our system, and because of the way it's been labelled, and also because the show caller will understand how sound is interacting with Zoom, and how that's interacting, we're using Zoom with some of our presenters today, and how that's interacting with our video cues. Yes, I could jump on sound, I could unmute and mute people quite comfortably. In a live capacity, I would never have touched a sound desk. And it's the same with vision mixing. I could, if Tom, who's on vision mix today, needs to go off and do a breakout session, I could jump on vision mixing quite comfortably.
Yes.
So I'd say that's one way the mindset has changed, and it's empowering to be able to know that I could jump on that role if required, but then it's also useful from a project manager point of view, because I understand that role a lot more this time, this year, than I did last year.
Yes. So if there were younger people coming into the profession, what advice would you give them in terms of wanting to enter? Is it to be a specialist, or is it to be a generalist, or a bit of both?
It's interesting. I think you begin as a generalist, and then you used to then kind of proceed into maybe one kind of area that you wanted to specialise in. But it's always handy when you're starting out to be able to jump on anything and to have knowledge about all of the different areas, I think. Because then you're useful, and then you're adaptable, and you're versatile, and we can fit you in where we need you.
Yes, got it. In terms of taking it back to running order, I know you talked about, when you're running a show in the theatre, you've got your running order, you can call the show. What are the main differences? If somebody here was saying, I've never done a running order, I've never actually done a running order, but I'm having to do my own little event, apart from employ you, but what advice would you give on what does a really tight, good running order need to have in order to function?
In order to function, a few different things. So the main difference, I would say, between theatre and this type of setup is that we'll have a column on our running order for state. So what state are we in? We're on our camera state at the minute, but then we might want to go to a VT, or then we might want to go to a holding loop. So we are controlling, with the use of that running order, exactly what we want our audience to see. Live theatre, they're seeing a stage. We don't need to control that. We are controlling how that stage looks. So there's elements there because we're controlling how this looks today, but we also have that added kind of process of then choosing, right, we're going to go to a VT now.
Yes. And
that is what our audience are going to see. Our mics will be off. We can chat to the tech team and talk about what we're going to do next type thing. So there's an element of control, which you don't always have in theatre.
Yes. And again, part of the skill will be your ability to translate that so that means something for clients when you're talking through to clients about the prep they need.
Definitely. So I think that's something we're still needing to speak to clients about, is how do you want it to look? And I think that's a really difficult question if you've not done a virtual event before. How do I want it to look? I don't know. You tell me. We can make suggestions. But more often than not, I find if I make a suggestion and I show a visual of how something looks, that's the spark, and that's when people go, oh, okay, no, I want it to be like this, and then the conversation kind of proceeds from there.
Got it. So it's a conversation, so they need examples. They need you to be able to share examples of what works.
Because I would find that question difficult, I think, if I was planning something new that I'd not done for the first time, on a platform I'd not used before, and virtual, no one here live physically. How do I want it to look? I don't know. I think a lot of event planners in the past were focusing on their table plan, their guest list, making sure people had received any goodie bags before they were due to attend, or things they would collect when they attended. And then atmosphere, music, lighting, dress code. food, all of that, all of those kind of sensory experiences. And then when it came to the actual show, oh, well, the tech team, they've got the show, the content looked great, fine. Whereas it's kind of reversed because you've taken that whole element out for those event planners. There's still such a critical part of that technology that we need to bring them into more.
Yes.
Because then they can make that, they know their event better than we do. They know how they want it to look really.
Yeah.
We just need to help them out a bit.
If you had a crystal ball that you were looking into, especially around engagement, how do you get an audience engaged? Because I know, I'm looking here and I'm still waiting for some questions, if you've got any questions. But we trust that there's almost 300 people who've logged onto this event. We don't know whether they are checking the phone, sitting on the toilet, homeschooling or whatever. We don't know what they're doing. And in terms of getting people's focus, how in your crystal ball would you want to see this world evolving so that you could get people's attention and keep it longer?
Yeah, definitely. Well, hopefully if we do go more to a hybrid setting, actually having a smaller audience here, or maybe socially distanced in the green room or the office we have upstairs, just to have more of a live atmosphere. But I don't know if that will happen quite as quickly. It might do. But Stuart mentioned something interesting earlier about VR experiences.
Yes.
And sending, I don't know if that would be possible if you had the budget, but sending your audience a VR headset, that would just be incredible. I just think that would be incredible. The content you could create and the experience you could gain out of that. And for people at home, because people are bored at looking at a screen at home. It's boring. I look at screens all day and I go home, I look at a screen.
Yeah, okay.
So a VR experience would be in your home would be absolutely amazing. I don't know if that would be possible, but then a year ago I didn't think this is possible.
Yeah,
so.
okay, got it. Yeah. Things are moving fast.
Yeah.
In terms of wrapping up, we've got another couple of minutes, but give me your 3 top tips for anybody wanting to know about this world and how to make it work as efficiently and as effectively as possible. What would those 3 top tips be?
The first one, I would say, I know Stuart said this, is to watch them. Attend
So get
them,
watching, attending.
Watch them and pick out what you like, pick out what you didn't like, and it will give you ideas for what you want to do. So firstly, I would say watch them. Secondly, I would say engage with your technical partner or team, wider team, about what is possible.
And again, engaging early.
Engaging early, I think, is really key, but also remember that you could just come to us with an idea. We can give you, oh yeah, you could do this, you could do that, and then you could go away and build upon that and then come back when you have a more structured kind of event or idea. But yeah, engage, have those conversations, see what's possible, what isn't possible, and I think your idea will flourish from there once you start having those technical conversations.
Yeah.
But also I would say, well, like I said earlier, no question is stupid. So ask the questions as well when you're engaging with those technical partners, because you might not understand it, and once you've been explained in hopefully a way that makes sense to you, I think that then gives you the power to go, right, we're going to do it this way because now I understand how that works.
Brilliant.
I don't know if I've got a third one.
No, that's fine. That was kind of 2.5 anyway. It was brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Lucy Payne. Thank you very much indeed. Before we're very shortly, we're going to a break in 2 minutes. Before we do, just the next top tip on in terms of resilience. And it's something Stuart alluded to. It's something here that Lucy's mentioned. Get started. Of course, the best time to get to know this hybrid world and hybrid futures is 6 months ago, is a year ago. The second best time is now. What stops us? Often it's, as Lucy alluded to, it's not wanting to appear stupid, not wanting to ask the stupid questions. It's fine. It's fine to ask the stupid questions. In fact, that's the only way you're going to learn. And in fact, I'd suggest that you get started, you have to take the first step. And I hear people say things like, oh, but that's right outside my comfort zone. I've never seen a comfort zone. If anybody can show me one, that's great. It's all in here. It's just a thought that gets in the way. There's a big amount of trust. Big amount of trust that's involved here. You have to know it's a safe space to try stuff out. And of course, not what with the clients in hand, but get started. What is it now? I'm going to ask you the kind of question here. We got 1 minute left. What is it? And you have to be happy not knowing. You have to know It's okay not knowing, and be comfortable not knowing. The paralysis of not doing anything is a vacuum, and it can fill with fear and regret. Have a conversation. Go online. Start watching things. Take that first step. Leading me into, of course, breakouts. We are going to do some breakouts now. I would love you to take the first step and click on the breakout that you fancy going to. We have got 2 breakouts we're going to look at. The breakouts with Imogen Palmer. If you want to know more about improvisation, how to use and make your sessions more interactive, go there. Thomas Benoit with a session on creating graphic content. That's what we're going to go to breakouts. All you have to do is go to the breakouts button on the left-hand side, and you click there. And we've got, I think that is for, that's for half an hour in a breakout. Enjoy it. See you when you're back. Bye now.